Hash the silent phone call at 3:07 a.m. Aunt Maria's necklace disappeared at precisely 3:07 on the morning of November 14th, 2022. A telephone rang in the quiet town of Whitmore Vale, a village nestled in the rolling hills of southeastern England. The call came from number 4, Willowbrook Lane, a detached house with blue-painted shutters and a garden that had once been the pride of its owner. The woman who answered was 73-year-old Maria Ashworth, known to her family as Aunt Maria. What she heard on the other end of the line would set in motion an investigation that remains open to this day. The call lasted 47 seconds. When it ended, Maria Ashworth sat on the edge of her bed in the darkness of her bedroom and realized that something precious was missing. Her pearl necklace, a family heirloom passed down through 4 generations, had vanished from the velvet-lined jewelry box on her dressing table. The box remained. The contents appeared undisturbed, but the necklace was gone. Detective Inspector Sarah Chen of Thames Valley Police would later describe the case as unlike any she had encountered in 23 years of service. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken windows, no disturbed locks. The jewelry box had been moved, yes, but only slightly, just enough to suggest that someone had opened it with deliberate care. And yet, Maria Ashworth had been asleep in the next room, no more than 15 feet away. Whitmore Vale is a village of approximately 2,000 residents, the kind of place where neighbors know each other's business, and the local constable has served the community for 3 decades. On the morning of November 14th, the weather was overcast, a gray November sky pressing down on the village like a lid. The temperature hovered around 4 degrees Celsius, and a thin mist clung to the fields surrounding the outlying farms. It was the kind of morning where the world seems to hold its breath. Maria Ashworth had lived at number 4 Willowbrook Lane for 41 years, ever since her marriage to Thomas Ashworth, a respected solicitor who had passed away in 2008. She was a woman of routine, rising each morning at 6, taking her tea with 1 sugar, and walking her small terrier, Biscuit, along the lane that led to the village center. She attended St. Michael's Church every other Sunday and maintained a small garden that bloomed with roses in summer. Neighbors described her as private but kind, a woman who kept to herself after her husband's death, but who never failed to ask after their children. The necklace in question had been a wedding gift from Maria's mother-in-law in 1971, a string of 47 Akoya pearls, each matching in size and luster, strung on silk thread with a platinum clasp shaped like a delicate rose. Its estimated value was approximately £8,000, though to Maria Ashworth it was priceless. She wore it only on special occasions: Christmas dinners, family weddings, the annual harvest festival at St. Michael's. The last time she had worn it was October 22nd, when she attended the christening of her great-nephew in Oxford. After that evening, she had placed it carefully in the jewelry box, as she always did. The phone call that woke her came from an unknown number. Maria would later tell investigators that she heard breathing on the line, slow, deliberate breathing, and then a voice, though she could not distinguish the words. It was not a shout or a threat. It was something else entirely, she said. A whisper, perhaps, or simply the suggestion of speech, like hearing someone speak in a dream. The call ended as abruptly as it had begun. When Maria turned on her bedside lamp and walked to the dressing table, she knew immediately. The velvet lining had been disturbed. The necklace was gone. She called her niece, Patricia Holloway, who lived in Reading, and Patricia in turn contacted the police. The investigation began within the hour. Officers arrived at Willowbrook Lane to find Maria Ashworth seated in her living room, wrapped in a cardigan, her hands trembling around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. The scene, they would later note, was peculiar in its normality. Everything was in its place. The television remote sat on the arm of the sofa. A half-completed crossword puzzle lay on the coffee table. In the kitchen, a loaf of bread sat beside a knife, as if someone had been in the middle of making a sandwich. There was no sign of struggle, no sign of fear, and yet something had been taken. Forensic officers examined the property thoroughly. They found no fingerprints on the jewelry box, which suggested the perpetrator had worn gloves. They found no footprints in the garden soil, though the ground was soft from recent rain. They found no evidence of a ladder or other means of accessing the upstairs windows, all of which had been closed and latched. The front door, according to Maria, had been locked as usual before she went to bed. The investigation soon expanded beyond the boundaries of number 4. Detective Inspector Chen and her team began interviewing neighbors, spreading outward from Willowbrook Lane to the surrounding streets. They learned that on the night of November 13th, a van had been seen parked near the end of the lane, a white Transit with no visible company markings. A resident named David Owens, who lived 3 houses down, had noticed it at approximately 11:40 p.m. He thought little of it at the time, assuming it belonged to a delivery driver or someone visiting one of the newer residents. The van remained for roughly 20 minutes before departing in the direction of the A4130. This detail became significant when officers checked the CCTV footage from the village's 2 automated traffic cameras. The white Transit was captured on film at 11:47 p.m., traveling east toward the Oxford Road. It did not appear on any camera after that. It had vanished as completely as the necklace itself. Further inquiries revealed that Maria Ashworth had recently updated her will, leaving the pearl necklace to her niece Patricia. This detail, while not immediately relevant, would later prompt investigators to consider whether the theft was premeditated, whether someone had known the necklace would be available and valuable enough to take. Patricia Holloway, when questioned, expressed shock and distress at the suggestion. She had no knowledge of the theft until her aunt called her that morning, she insisted. The investigation also examined Maria's telephone records. The call at 3:07 a.m. had originated from a pay-as-you-go mobile phone, purchased with cash in reading 2 weeks earlier. The SIM card had been activated and used only twice, once to make a test call to another number and once to call Maria Ashworth. Both calls had lasted less than a minute. The phone had been switched off after the second call and had not been used since. It was never recovered. Witnesses were interviewed across the village. A postman named Thomas Greer reported seeing a man he did not recognize walking near the church on November 12th, the day before the incident. The man was described as being of medium height, wearing a dark coat and a baseball cap, possibly navy blue or black. He had been carrying a small bag and appeared to be taking photographs of houses. When Greer asked if he could help, the man simply smiled and walked away. Greer described the smile as unsettling, though he could not say why. A woman named Susan Finch, who lived opposite number 4, reported hearing a car door close at around 2:30 a.m. on the night in question. She had been awake, she said, nursing a sick cat, and had looked out her window but seen nothing. The street was empty. The sound had not struck her as significant until the police came knocking. These accounts, while intriguing, did not provide a clear picture of what had happened at Willowbrook Lane. The forensic evidence yielded no matches. The white van remained a mystery. The caller at 3:07 a.m. was never identified. The necklace itself was never found, though police conducted searches of several locations in the months following the incident, following up on tips and leads that invariably came to nothing. Maria Ashworth passed away in March of last year, at the age of 75, in a care home in Abingdon where she had been residing following a fall in her garden. She never recovered her necklace. She never learned who had entered her home that night, or how they had gained entry, or why they had chosen to call her at the precise moment they did. In her final months, her niece Patricia said, she would sometimes sit by the window and look toward Willowbrook Lane, as if waiting for an answer that would never come. The case remains officially open. Detective Inspector Sarah Chen, when asked about it recently, paused for a long moment before responding. There are elements that do not fit. She said, the precision of the entry, the timing of the phone call, the absence of any clear motive unless one considers the necklace itself, though even that raises questions. Why take something so specific, so easily traceable? Why call it all? What was the purpose of that whisper in the darkness, that 47 seconds of nothing? Perhaps we will never know what happened at number 4 Willowbrook Lane on that November night. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere beneath the surface of things, waiting to be discovered. Or perhaps, as some in Whitmore Vale have begun to whisper, there are mysteries that prefer to remain hidden, folded away like a pearl necklace in a velvet box, gone but never quite forgotten.